Hello and welcome to the Cleft Mama podcast. This is a supportive space for families navigating life with a baby diagnosed with a cleft lip and/or palate. Here we share real experiences, practical guidance, and conversations with parents and professionals to help you feel informed, supported, and less alone. I'm your host, Anja Pownell, and I'm excited to get started. Hello everyone, I'm excited to bring you another guest episode today, and I've been toying with that idea for quite a while to also bring you the perspective of a dad. So today I have Chris here.
Hi.
Hello Chris, and Chris is my husband. So today we're going to hear what his thoughts were about our son and the diagnosis. So maybe first of all, we're going back to the day of the diagnosis. So this was at the 20-week anomaly scan when we found out that the baby likely has a cleft lip. What were your thoughts then?
Well, at first, I really didn't know what a cleft was. So when the person said there seems to be a little cleft, obviously you got a little bit upset. And I just didn't know what that meant. Like for the baby, I didn't know it was just going to be the lip being affected, or if it meant there was going to be like severe needs or anything for the child. I didn't know if it meant there would be some kind of disability involved as well. So I was kind of worried. As you know, I struggled for the next half hour or so. Went a bit lightheaded and stuff, but it's just mainly because I didn't really know what was going on and what that meant. But then after looking into what a cleft was and speaking to you about what a cleft was, I did settle down. And then we went for the next one in Wrexham where it was confirmed, and I was absolutely fine with that one because I knew that it wouldn't impact Mika so much, really.
Yeah, it's not a life-threatening condition or anything. And what I found reassuring as well is to know that the baby is not in pain and they don't know any different. And yeah, they're not really impacted as such.
Yeah, it's like when I knew that it all settled down, it was just the first confusion, really.
And then, did you have any worries throughout the pregnancy or leading up to the birth? How did you feel then?
I knew it wasn't going to affect him in any other ways. We had numerous growth scans, which we found kind of pointless in the end, that they were just telling us, yeah, everything's fine. And some of the people even were thinking, why are you here? Why are you having growth scans for a baby who doesn't need them? But we were just put on that pathway because it was consultant care.
Yeah. And then the big day came, finally. Mika was 1 week late, as we expected, really. But then, what were your thoughts when we first saw him?
Well, at the scan in Wrexham, like the fetal medicine unit, they said the cleft would be quite small and 4 millimeters. And I'm quite squeamish anyway, so seeing a baby full of the fluids and all that stuff, like I am kind of squeamish about that anyway. So when I first seen the lip, it like was probably exaggerated a little bit, but like why everything else was going on. Once it like being cleaned up a bit, you just looked at him and you're seeing a cute little baby. And the gap was bigger than we expected. The palate, I think it was definitely bigger than I expected. And just seeing how open everything was an eye-opener, because you see loads of pictures of like babies, but you never actually get to see inside the mouth when they're so brand new and tiny. But like other than the difficulty getting out the hospital and getting them to sign off that he's absolutely fine because they didn't believe that the cleft nurse would be so happy, basically. Like once we were past all that stage, it was absolutely fine, and we just had a cute little baby boy.
Yeah. And throughout the pregnancy, I had obviously researched quite a bit, and I'd seen some of the pictures of other babies, but you didn't really look at many of those pictures. So was it still a surprise of how it looked, or was it kind of what you were expecting?
I wasn't expecting it to go right up to the nose. I was expecting it to join closer, which I think would have brought everything a bit more together for me. But just seeing how open it was, how one nostril was basically not there because it was that was holding his face together and was really stretched. So it was a lot different than what I expected, like in that kind of way. And I always went by the person in Wrexham who said it'd be 4 millimeters, and I always thought it would join beneath the nose.
Yeah. So we were never told before, and it would be a complete unilateral cleft lip. They said the nose was not involved, thinking it would be an incomplete cleft lip, but it really was a complete cleft lip and cleft palate, which I also saw straight away. So when Mika was born, he kind of just screamed, and I could see straight away that his palate was involved as well. So it was definitely not how they made it out in Wrexham, but I was a surprise. But at the same time, you're also very excited. You just had a new baby.
Yeah, I think if we didn't have the scans, it would have been a bit kind of easier to see, like that his nose and things were involved. But it was just the being told that they weren't was not a disappointment when he was born, but obviously a bit more of a worry than what we were expecting. Whereas if we just listened to the cleft nurse, she always said it could all be involved, and yeah.
Yeah. Those scans were not helpful also in a way that we never got any photos. Obviously, you go for this 3D scan thinking you can see the face, and also the cleft nurse, when she first saw us, she asked, so what are the pictures showing? Can you show us the picture? Well, we never had any, because our baby was always moving around or covering the face with the hands, and we never actually got to see it. I think they pointed it out to you and you saw it on the screen at some point, but I never saw anything really.
Yeah, we saw it, but I couldn't see how far up it was going. I could basically just see the mouth with a line above it. And the consultant was trying to measure bits of it, but it just didn't make sense what he was measuring, and his numbers didn't add up when the baby was actually born anyway. Because he then said it wouldn't get bigger while the baby was growing in your belly.
Yeah. And then we got back home, and obviously the palate was involved, which means I couldn't breastfeed, which I had done for the other. So that really was our hope, that it would be just a cleft lip, so I could just go straight to breastfeeding. But it meant instead I was pumping. And then, well, I had to pump in the night as well, but we decided that I just feed our toddler in the night, so I don't have to pump then, which means I'm spending the nights with the toddler. And that left the night feeds to you for the first time. So we have 2 other kids where I did the night feeds, but this time you're there now with first finger feeding and then later moving on to the bottle. So how is that experience of being up with the baby in the night for a change?
It was definitely an eye-opener. There were some nights, like early on, where I was getting an hour, 2 hours sleep at the most, and that was even broken up into half-hour chunks at the very best. But just being with Mika basically all day and all night was like, it's a wonderful thing to be with him so much. But yeah, the feeding some nights was just absolutely relentless, especially trying to use the finger feeder where you're only putting a tiny bit in the syringe and then you've got to refill it if he finishes. And you've just got to stay so alert that you're actually feeding him correctly and he's taking it correctly, and then trying to get him back into his own bed while he's asleep before I can even consider going back to sleep. So there were some nights where it was just constant pick him up, feed him, put him down, and then he wakes up instantly. And yeah, it's definitely an eye-opener for what you've done for the other 2.
Would you do it again though?
Yeah, like I've basically forgotten about the awkward nights now. So now I'm still feeding Mika through the night and it's a lot easier. And I think the routine of it helped. Like now that we're in more of a routine of how I can feed him in the night and get back to sleep. I think if we started again from scratch now, kind of in a routine and taking a cool box to bed and things, it would be a lot easier. But yeah, there were some tired days, especially with the toddlers then being crazy during the day.
Mm. Yeah, so I'm obviously, since he was born, I'm pumping 4 times a day. In the beginning was more to really bring the milk in, but it's now 4 times a day, which is also exhausting. But I think having him fed on only breast milk, now he has solids as well, but mainly breast milk, it has to be worthwhile. It has to be worthwhile for you to do the feeds in the night so I can, be with the toddler and not have to pump.
Yeah, definitely the breastfeeding is the way to go, and making sure he's getting everything he needs, all the antibodies and things that you get from you. So it's definitely worth it, and especially the time that we did try formula of Nico once, and he basically projectile vomited a whole, well, it wasn't even a whole bottle, but he managed to cover the whole bed with milk. So we never want to go back to them days again, no matter how difficult it gets.
Yeah. So do you feel, because you're feeding and you're with Mika basically day and night, do you feel that you have a different bond with him than the other two?
At the moment, I think it's hard to tell, but like at the baby stage, I definitely think I'm closer than I was to the other two. When Nico was young, I think that he always wanted you, and as soon as he got upset, it was like, Anja, he needs you again. Whereas with Mika, I can then like feed him myself, I can get him settled again, and I think it gives me chance to think I'm giving you more of a break, letting him, like getting him settled, and then you don't have to come down and feed him again. But yeah, I think it's definitely a bit of a closer connection, and I feel more kind of a mum in that kind of way. Like he comes up to me for cuddles and things like that, and yeah, I think we definitely seem a lot closer than Nico, and definitely Nina, because Nina is still very clingy with you and doesn't want me near her when she is wanting milk, like when she's trying to sleep again.
I found it interesting when you're breastfeeding a baby, then you kind of nurse them to sleep as well. And so for the first two, that was my go-to to get them to sleep. I could never ever put them to sleep without me feeding them. And you could. But now what's interesting with Mika, so you're feeding with the bottle. I just started recently again using the supplemental nursing system. But so you're still giving probably the majority of the feeds. And with Mika, you're not able to put him to sleep without feeding him from the bottle. And I can put him to sleep just by holding him and bouncing him. So he knows that I can't directly give him the milk. So I can actually put him to sleep. So that's quite a surprising, nice change. Because you'd think it's just moms that they need to feed and the dads can magically put them to sleep. But this time it's the other way around.
Yeah, that's definitely a difference. Like with Nico, I could always pick him up, cuddle him. Even with Nina, I could pick her up and cuddle her, and she would eventually fall asleep. But with Mika, he just sticks his head up and looks around as if he's looking for the bottle and doesn't get sleepy at all. If anything, he gets more and more awake until I give him some milk. So that's definitely something different. And now passing Mika on to you for you to get him to sleep without milk, because he like had enough milk or something and isn't sleeping with it.
Yeah. So will be interesting to see. I'm still having the hope that he might nurse eventually after the pellet is closed, and hopefully we have no fistulas, so he can actually create the vacuum and then possibly nurse for me. And then we see who can put him to sleep still after that. So I'm back at work, and as before, you're probably the main caregiver, I would say, to the children. So you're out and about with all three of them. Did you notice any different reactions to when you were out with Mika, especially while he still had the open cleft lip before his surgery?
There's been like the odd occasion, like nothing sinister or anything, but there's been like a few kids have looked over and you can tell they're like thinking what's happened. One boy, one of the groups we go to, did mention it and say like what's going on, but obviously they've never seen anything like it before, so it's completely new to them. And if anything, it's probably good that they do meet kids with the cleft still open, so that they can understand what's going on and see him afterwards and see, yeah, things can be fixed. In Germany, there were a couple of occasions where people said something about the baby and then you've translated it. So there was a man at a soft play who like said something, I had no idea what he said. And it turned out he was like saying everything's going to be fine, and he was trying to be really supportive. But as a non-German speaker, I didn't really know, so I kind of gave a very blank expression and let him carry on with his life. But yeah, everyone who has asked questions has been quite supportive and basically saying like it's amazing what surgeons can do and not to worry and everything will be okay. And there was one, it wasn't one in Germany actually, where a lady, she must have knew about what was going on, and she was asking about the surgeries and how far along we are and how many surgeries he might have. And she spoke a little bit of English, so with my tiny bit of German, we did manage to communicate. And again, she was just been really supportive, but clearly had knowledge of the procedures and like some understanding of how I was feeling as well, the way she was asking the questions and not making me feel out of place. Is that the word?
And we actually also met someone here on Anglesey on the island just the day before her surgery. And she used to be a midwife, I think, and she was very familiar with it as well. And she said that she will pray for him in her church on the day of the surgery. And she did. And also asked afterwards how it all went. So that was very nice as well.
Yeah, everyone's been like really nice about it and basically being really supportive, and the people who do have an understanding are always like reaffirming that everything's going to be fine.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Talking about the surgery, he had his first surgery, which was the lip surgery. So do you want to talk us through how that day went from your perspective?
Being someone who doesn't overly worry and think things, I think the morning was generally a normal morning for me. Got up and done all the usual stuff and wasn't really overthinking what was going to happen. We obviously tried to give Mika as much milk as we could when he was last allowed to have it, but he basically fell asleep and didn't have too much. So it was always going to be a gamble of how long he lasted. And we had a 1 o'clock admission, which meant he couldn't feed again after 10 o'clock. And then going into the hospital, he got his usual checks and he had a cough as well, so we didn't even know if the surgery was going to go ahead. So he was having all these checks. We then were waiting in a waiting room, and all the other people who were having surgery with different surgeons were coming and going for their surgery, and it was just us left. There were people coming in after us, and they were also going. And in the end, Mika started getting hungry, as he would, and tired. Obviously, I had no chance of getting him to sleep because that's impossible for me to do. So we got some bubbles from the nurses to just blow bubbles and entertain him. Then the nurses started passing him around because he was getting quite upset. And then he had some sugar and water, and then managed to fall asleep, obviously on you, because I couldn't give him a bottle. And eventually we went into the room with the anaesthetist. Mika was already flat out asleep, so they just put him straight on the bed and they put the mask over his face to get him to sleep properly. And I know that you wouldn't have wanted to be there for this part, but because he was already asleep, it didn't seem too different from when he would have gone floppy and things. Then we got asked to leave, and he would have got wheeled away into the theatre. And then we just had the endless wait of waiting for a phone call. And we had some mix up with the ward, which added a bit of anxiety to the situation. And then again, we were just sat waiting outside. And then we started seeing people leaving who we knew were part of the procedure. We're seeing the anaesthetist leave again. We've seen the nurse from the recovery room leaving. And she said that he's calm, which we both thought he's awake and calm, which we didn't want. We wanted to be there when he woke up, so he doesn't have the nightmares and things of being abandoned. And then even the surgeon left, which we thought he would have to wait around until Mika was at least coming round. But they all left, and we still just hadn't heard anything. So we basically I just walked up to the ward that they said he would end up on and kind of said, "What's going on?" And they took me to the room on the ward where he would have been. And I thought they were taking me to him because I thought he was awake already. So I rang you, and you basically ran up to the ward. And then I got to this room, and they were still mopping it out, and there was no baby there, which was a bit confusing. And it basically turned out that when the nurse said calm, she meant still asleep. We got up there. When Drew got up there, they then took you down to the recovery room to get him. And when he came back, he was flat out asleep. We first saw him from the back of his head because he was lying on his side. So it wasn't a sudden realization of what's happened. And then when we first saw his mouth, it just seemed much better than I expected. Like there was no bloody bits, no scabs, and it just seemed like a nice cut had been put together quite nicely. He then woke slightly when you were still there, but was still really dozy, and he basically had one of his best nights sleep ever, really. He had a few feeds and was getting plenty of milk, and then would just go back asleep. And if it wasn't for the nurses doing the observations, I would have had a great night. And then the next morning, the surgeon came around and said, yeah, he's drunk enough. He can go home today. So then we were just pretty much waiting around for them to sort the medicines and show us how to do the suppositories and the morphine. And then we were good to go.
And now that it's been a few weeks, well, months already, so it was in May, mid-May, and now we're in mid-July, so it's about 2 months since the surgery happened, and the scar has changed quite a bit. What are your thoughts now?
Yeah, at first it looked perfect. Like even like the days afterwards, it looked perfect. And I know that it's what a lot of people say, but you could barely tell that he had had a cleft in the first place. And now the scar has started lifting up on one side, and it's got quite, like it looks like it's lifted quite a lot. So it almost looks like he's got a small cleft again. But the cleft nurse does say that this is just tightening up and then it will loosen and go back down again. I think the surgeon said it as well, so that is quite reassuring that it's expected. It's just a case of how long will it take to drop back down to get back to how it was straight after, basically.
Yeah. When you say it looks like a cleft again, I just want to explain. So it's the scar shortening, so it's pulling the lip up. It's not like it's opening again. It's just that it's pulling it up. So when he closes his mouth, it's not completely closed. There's now a little gap where the lip is just being pulled so high that it's not completely sealed. But yeah, I didn't know that before, and I was surprised about that it can pull up so much. And still, the cleft nurse tells us to not massage the scar, because I thought we should do that straight away afterwards to stop that, to prevent that from pulling up so much. But she says, no, we need to let it all heal completely and let it all work and be completely settled. And yeah, start after 2 months at the earliest. We see her next week, so we'll see what she says then. But so far, we were told to not touch it, to not massage it. Yeah, and I just hope it comes down and looks how it looked straight after the surgery, because then it was completely even. It was completely balanced, the lip, and looked perfect, apart from, well, obviously having there a scar which had stitches. But other than that, it looked perfect. So I really hope it goes back to that.
Yeah, but with massaging it, he definitely wouldn't let us near that scar for a good month and a half. We can now put sun cream on it at least, but he doesn't like us messing with it, so I don't think massaging would have gone down very well anyway.
Yeah. Well, it's probably for the best that we weren't meant to do it, because we would have felt bad putting it on. But obviously we would have done whatever as the best guidance. But I just hope it goes back to what it was. Because also his profile, so when you look at him from the side, straight after the surgery, it was really full lips. And now it's quite flat. So yeah, I hope that balances all out. We'll see what happens. So thinking back to the day of our diagnosis, what would you advise another dad to think or do or not do?
Basically, stay calm, don't panic, don't worry. With the cleft, it is just, like, at the moment, it's just basically cosmetic. I know there can be further implications down the road, but don't worry, enjoy your baby. And there's, like, the baby's not in pain, which is the main thing, and there's not any other disabilities going on. So, like, I panicked at first, but there was no need to, really. And basically, don't Google things. Get in touch with the right people. So don't Google it, just speak to the cleft nurses and anyone who actually knows or has had experience about it. So we were put in touch with other parents who have had babies with a cleft, and that was really, really reassuring, because we've then seen babies who have had the palate surgery done as well, and they're just getting on with it, and it's just like having a normal baby pretty much. So yeah, just don't panic at all and don't stress.
Yeah, I think Chris is a lot just taking it in its stride and managing as it comes up. So we know there will be future things. We have to obviously monitor the hearing and then the speech. He's definitely making sounds, a lot of them already. But we know that there might be certain sounds that might be difficult because of the cleft palate as well. And we were already told that there will also be the bone graft when he is 8 years old. But I guess you're just not thinking ahead so far into the future, and we're just enjoying him as he is. And he's just so happy and chasing after his siblings and just doing everything they do. So he's definitely not impacted in that way.
Yeah, like stuff that's further down the road, I know it could come up, but I don't want to stress about things that might not come up or other things that I just can't change. There's no point stressing about now. So a surgery in 7 or 8 years isn't on the front of my mind at the moment. Like at the time, obviously it will be, and it's a worry. But at the moment, it's just not something I'm worrying about.
Okay, thank you very much for talking to me today in this official setting of being on the podcast. And I hope you found that interesting. You're also documenting every now and then your days out with the little ones. So if anyone is interested, can they follow you on Instagram?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. I'm that homeschool dad.
I will put that in the show notes as well.
Thank you.
So thanks for listening and talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Cleft Mama podcast. I hope you get a ton of value out of our time together. You're not alone in this journey. And remember, you're doing an amazing job. If this episode helped you, please follow and share it with another parent who might benefit from it. See you next time.